Ladies and gentlemen, our US Thanksgiving wasn't what I expected. I mean, I've seen videos and photographs, and it looks exactly what I thought it would be, but apparently it's not. And Lost in the Pond is going to describe to us today why his experience of Thanksgiving wasn't what he expected. If you're new here, hello. Hope you're doing absolutely beautiful today. Hope you're having a great day. It's coming up to Christmas. Hope you're having a good day. I hope you've done your shop. I hope you've done your shop. I'm going to remind everybody of something that I'm currently doing over on Twitch. Bear with me. Hear me out. Currently raising, all jokes aside, I'm currently doing a charity over there called Cash for Kids. And it's basically a charity in Northern Ireland that raises money for kids around Christmas time that aren't lucky enough to get spoiled on Christmas Day with a lot of presents. So this company goes out and buys a load of different toys for kids. You can go and donate toys to certain warehouses around Northern Ireland. Parents can come and collect toys for the kids and stuff. It's really good. It's something it's been going on here for a little while. But I'm currently raising money over on Twitch up until the 15th of December. Currently, to date, we've raised £2,500, which is absolutely insane. So if you guys, have a spare tenner sitting around, it would go a long way, further than you know, and it would make a couple of kids smile more at Christmas, which would be a great thing to do. It breaks my heart to think of kids waking up on Christmas Day and not having anything. So if you guys want to come and contribute to that, I would be much welcomed over Twitch. I stream there Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. So we've got 3 more streams to do. So I'll be live Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday from 8 p.m, 9 p.m. UK onwards. So it's kind of like 5 p.m, 6 p.m. for you, or maybe around there. I don't know. But we'll be donating all money raised on Sunday, the 15th. Okay? And the goal is 3,000. Originally, the goal was 500, but we've done so well, it's now 3,000. Plug is over. Link down below in the pinned comment. Now let's do this. I always do this, ladies and gentlemen. You probably know what I'm going to say. I have an ad, and I don't even know if this is to do with food. But the thought of Thanksgiving, I mean, you hear Thanksgiving, and what do you see in your head? Food. Now I want the turkey. Anyway.
Grew up 4,000 miles from my current home. The only frame of reference I had for the American life I now live was American TV and film. In the 80s, much like today, these infiltrated Britain in much the same way British music infiltrated America. As a child, I was in love with the Goonies, not to mention Andy from the Goonies.
Oh my God.
Back to the Future 47 times in the same week. And then at some point in the late 80s, I was introduced to a very specific American comedy. Now for context, you have to understand that back then, my dad used to go on business trips to London. And this was always quite exciting because it meant he'd return with a mystery VHS. Following a successful track record of delivering eye-popping entertainment, my dad apparently decided on a different approach with an American movie that I did not recognize.
Planes, Trains and Automobiles, said my very English dad. It's about a bloke who's trying to get home for, I think they call it...
Yo, who's seen this movie before? Who has seen this? I'm not even joking. This is one of the best movies ever. One of the funniest films ever. And you're probably thinking, Adam, you're way too young to have watched that. I'm only 22.
Thanksgiving. It's meant to be right funny.
Given that I was expecting Karate Kid 2, my disappointment was palpable, and so the tape lay dormant until I was bored one Sunday afternoon. I put it on, and sure enough, my dad was right. It was funny. To the extent that my best friend and I used to copy the bit where Steve Martin says the F word 18 times. Sorry, Mum, if you're just learning about that. But after several watches, there was one question that kept popping into my head. What on earth is Thanksgiving? Well, 20 years later,
all
after
kids thought
moving
that.
to the United States, I found out firsthand, and it wasn't what I was expecting.
We wish you a Merry Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving wasn't simply another word for Christmas. And I know to Americans that might sound weird because Thanksgiving isn't Christmas. But the film gave me more than one reason to believe that it was. Firstly, they're driving around in lots of snow, which in Britain is a fairly rare event, but if it does occur, it usually does so in winter.
To be fair, in all honesty, I used to think that Thanksgiving was just like a warm-up for Christmas. I know it's not, and I know it has an entirely different meaning, but you can't, there's no way Thanksgiving doesn't give you Christmas vibes. Am I wrong in saying that? Please let me know if I'm right.
And not autumn. I have since realized and was reminded just the other day that in the American Midwest, thick snow in November, or Snowvember, is not uncommon.
He loves it. Look at him.
Aww.
He's so excited. Are you going to run around, Arthur? Are you going to run around?
Secondly, in the film, while Steve Martin's wife is waiting for him to come home, I believe there's a quick shot of her lighting a candle, which we're not going to do right now because there's a cat here.
I honestly thought that was orange juice.
I'll probably burn him. But that, in tandem with this winter feel, made it appear like a cheap Christmas card. Thirdly, Steve Martin's wife pulls from the oven a giant turkey, and that is not a euphemism. Turkey, of course, in Britain is mostly synonymous with the Christmas meal, and so this was a huge reason that
I feel like that's what it is,
because 26 years of my life,
the meals are similar, right?
On the one hand and Christmas on the other were actually one and the same. But
dinners at Christmas and Thanksgiving are somewhat similar. Am I right? If there is any sort of like discrepancies, what are the differences between a Christmas dinner and a Thanksgiving dinner? Comments box.
It turns out that not only is Thanksgiving not Christmas, it takes place in November. Specifically, the fourth Thursday in November. It didn't help that Steve Martin lived in a huge house in the Chicago suburbs, because that makes me think of one thing.
Home Alone.
Home Alone, which is a Christmas movie.
Oh my God, yo, we're the same person.
Films that featured the late great Sir Jonathan Candy. That brings us on to this.
Candy. Canadians celebrate Thanksgiving in October.
America was not alone in celebrating a holiday of this very name. I mean,
wait a minute.
Slack, I barely knew that America did. Because
in my head, the whole reason for Thanksgiving, this is probably about to be so wrong, is indigenous people celebrating being in the US, and everyone's thanking each other for being nice to each other. That's completely wrong, isn't it? I'm pretty sure it's right though. In some aspect, that's right though, isn't it? No? Alexa, what is Thanksgiving for?
According to an Alexa Answers contributor, the purpose of the holiday Thanksgiving is to express gratitude for the positive things in our lives.
Where am I getting indigenous people from? Someone has misinformed me, ladies and gentlemen.
I've been doing this channel over the years. I've discovered that there are Canadians in the world and they watch. Hello. And usually, whenever I do any kind of Thanksgiving-themed content, I get those really polite comments that are along the lines of, Lawrence, you disgrace. You forgot about Canadian Thanksgiving again, so I'm inserting
I didn't even know about it
to appease you. John Candy, the greatest Canadian after Bret the Hitman Hart, would not have celebrated Thanksgiving the same day as his character in Planes, Trains and Automobiles, because it turns out that Canada does theirs on the second Monday in October. And given that Canada also does Boxing Day, if you took all of the North American holidays, the holiday season would never end. It would be 3 solid months of eating and vomiting.
Why are we vomiting?
Before I knew better, I never once questioned the inherent meaning of Thanksgiving, that we gather to celebrate the birth of our Lord Jesus Christ and open lots of presents. But during my first Thanksgiving party, which happened about 2 weeks after I moved to the United States, it became clear at that point that this was in addition to Christmas, and so I was quickly onto the business of eating, but also asking these friends and family members at the table, what's all this about? And this was actually a college campus, so for them it was about getting drunk. But, you know, after a few solid pints, I managed to get out of them that the day is all about giving thanks. The clue is in the name. It's about giving thanks for this bountiful harvest of
Where am I getting indigenous people from?
At this table, or just in America. I'm not going to do a deep dive on the history of this, but what I am going to do is just give you my observation of how Americans display that gratitude. I don't think I've been to a single display. My observation of how American people food is all about giving thanks.
What the fuck's
going to do a
look? This is what I was talking about.
Deep dive on the history of this, but what I am going to do is just give you my observation of how Americans display that gratitude. I don't think I've been to a single Thanksgiving family meal with her family and not sat there while another family member, usually a bloke, I don't know why that is, says, let's say grace. So I do. Grace. And at that point, everybody in the room looks at me and says, shut up, you clown. And they, you know, basically thank the Lord for all of this wonderful food that we are about to eat to excess.
You should be thanking the oven.
More than that, because I think that something that I suppose we never got to see in Planes, Trains and Automobiles is the actual event, the sitting around the table, because Thanksgiving is a joyous occasion.
It is.
And I don't know that that's just because people feel extra thankful that day, or if it's this. It's a holiday with very little pressure, unless you're the one cooking all the food, then there's a lot of pressure. But unlike Christmas, you don't have to buy presents for anybody, so that's nice. And because it falls on...
You know what it is? See, if you just strip away everything, get it down to the bare bones, you know what it is? Just an excuse to be happy and celebrate and eat food and drink without people having to ask why. Does that make sense? It's Thanksgiving. Let's get drunk. Let's eat loads of food. Ha 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 ha, let's be happy. Because if you do something like this in real life on any random date, people will be like, what's happening over there? Like, well, they got a party going on. We should have Thanksgiving every week, if you ask me.
a Thursday, some employers might
Every
even
week.
give their employees the Friday off, so therefore you get a 4-day weekend, which is a bloody rare thing in America. In Britain, this exact scenario plays out if indeed Christmas and Boxing Day are immediately before or immediately after the weekend. In either case, in my experience, you'll probably spend those 4 days eating turkey sandwiches.
Beautiful.
And while we're on the subject
What a
of
great
meat,
fucking
a YouTube
sandwich it is.
sensation like me needs all the fuel he can get for creating the second best videos on the internet. That's why I'm using today's sponsor.
Okay. What in the name of tarnation? Where are they all going? Nah, man. How many lanes we got here? 16 lanes of traffic. Oh, nah, I don't even know. There's about 20 lanes of traffic, Irma.
This is the reality for a lot of Americans. And so, like Steve Martin's character, they might use all manner of transport to try to get where they need to go. Now, admittedly, most of the time, we will drive those hundreds of miles in a car. But one time, when we were less rich, we used Megabus. And there was something profoundly disappointing about that. It's that the people on the bus didn't start...
Look at the young Lawrence, man.
Profoundly disappointing about that. It's that the people on the bus didn't start singing the theme tune to the Flintstones, which happens in Planes, Trains and Automobiles.
Flintstones,
Meet the
Now, in
Flintstones.
hindsight, this
What
is
a
sort
movie.
of weird because
Cartoon.
if anyone's going to break out into song, it is Americans. I pointed out in my recent road trip video that this is a fairly common occurrence with inside the walls of a car.
I love it.
Cars have walls? I don't know. But in my experience, this sort of thing doesn't happen on buses. Largely because nobody wants to be there and we're all terrified of strangers.
Yo, I ain't gonna lie. In a car, like, if, you know, we put on a good song, I'm singing along to it, like, no problem. I will belt out a tune on a bus. If I get on public transport and everyone starts singing, I will literally hold my breath until I pass away. There's no way nah, man, there's something strange about that. Just take me to my destination, brother.
Happy holidays.
You
But
know?
when it comes to travelling for the holidays, I think Planes, Trains and Automobiles did get one thing right. And that's that American trains are unreliable.
What?
What I'm about to say is a spoiler for a 37-year-old film. So if
What's
you
this
haven't
got to
seen
do with
Planes, Trains and
Thanksgiving?
Automobiles, put me on mute for 20 seconds and don't be tempted to lip read. At the end of the movie, Steve Martin takes a lonely John Candy back to his huge house in the Chicago suburbs. And when they get there, the family is so happy to see them. Paul Young is playing in the background and it's just a rousing finish to the film. There's just one problem. Where are the other 20 people, Steve? I mean, I know you turned up late, so maybe they all left. But my experience is if you've got a house as big as that, you'll have cousins, second cousins, some guy named Todd that
Maybe
nobody
they're all dead.
recognizes. Because Americans, much more than the British, like to go all out when it comes to invitations. On the one hand, it can be overwhelming for introverts such as myself. On the other, it does give me more people to turn to when my wife's cousin Chad tries to get me to look at his comic collection. Had I known the full extent of a Thanksgiving meal, I might have overcome my Christmas confusion much sooner. But it seems to me that Steve Martin's wife's turkey, again, not a euphemism, was in fact a ruse. Because when you take into account some of the other food items that are common at a Thanksgiving dinner table, there's not really a lot of crossover with British Christmas at all. Firstly,
No.
there's no Christmas pudding,
We got
obviously.
nothing.
And instead of mince pies, you have one of either pecan pie, my favourite, pumpkin pie,
I'm sorry,
made out
what?
of real pumpkins, and one of either...
What is that? Pecan? Alexa, what is a pecan pie?
Pecan pie is usually defined as a sweet pie made from corn syrup and pecans, considered a specialty of southern United States cuisine.
What is a pecan? Alexa, what is a pecan?
Pecan is usually defined as a tall hickory tree, Caia illinoinensis, of the southern US and Mexico, cultivated for its oval, smooth-shelled, edible nuts. The state tree of Texas.
Okay.
For more, ask me to give you more definitions for pecan.
Alexa, should the guys watching over on YouTube inside this camera come and follow me on Twitch?
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
Pecan pie, my favourite, pumpkin pie made out of real pumpkins and not whatever the hell this travesty is from Target, or sweet potato
You leave
pie,
Target
or
alone!
about 100 other pies. And sure, as I told YouTube sensation Evan Edinger the other day, you know, I gave up added sugar, I'm not going to eat this with you. But back when I wasn't, pies contribute heavily to making this my favourite of the American holidays. And then there's the sides. I remember sitting around a
That
table
deviled
not
eggs.
similar to this, and my wife said, I want stuffing, which left me mortified until I realised she meant the food. And so I passed her stuffing, to which she said, that's not stuffing, that's oyster dressing. The stuffing is on the far side of the table. Well, they look the same to me. What is this? I've never heard of oyster dressing. Well, it turns out I should have. Oyster dressing, a bread
That does not look like a stuffing, man. How the hell does that look like stuffing, Lawrence?
filled dish typically enjoyed in the South and by at least one family in the Midwest, actually originated in Britain. The
Oh,
first
dear.
known reference to oyster dressing can be found in a 1685 edition of The Accomplished, a cookery book by the English chef Robert May. Anyway, the recipe, then a
cookbooks
mixture
in
of
that
oysters, bacon,
600 years
herbs, and
ago.
spices, was brought to North America by British colonists, first showing
know
up
there
in
was
American
books?
print more than a century later in Amelia Simmons' American Cookery. Suffice to say, the stuffing or dressing that I've had in the United States is usually quite a lot different to the stuffing that I had in Britain. Partly that comes down to texture, but secondarily it comes down to the
Ingredients.
shape. Back in Britain, where I come from, it was not uncommon to have stuffing balls, which that is
Beautiful.
a euphemism. However, in the US, stuffing is often
Beautiful.
not as congealed, a sort of bread-heavy free-for-all inside a casserole
Oh,
dish
really?
themselves more prevalent in US
That's
kitchens
not
than
stuffing.
British ones. I'm probably generalizing heavily with everything I've said in this video, but for the most part, that's been my experience.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, what is your favorite thing about Thanksgiving? Let me know below. Let me read some wholesome comments down below. Is it seeing family members you haven't seen for a while? Is it getting to make a load of food for everybody to enjoy? Or just getting everyone together for an excuse to, what I said earlier on, get drunk? I'm probably a bit of all three, bro. I can't lie, man. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like, subscribe. Just to remind everybody, we are on the road to 200,000 subscribers. I want you to be a part of it. I do. Now hit the sub button, or you get 3.5 years bad luck. Don't take the risk. Goodbye.